Hi, my name is Kevin Strickland, and I've been a Wenatchee resident for going on 20 years. I've lived and worked here. I'm raising my family here, graduated from WVC. I worked for Cherry Creek Radio, worked in finance, worked in sales for Fred Meyer, 15 years, business-to-business sales. I've done all kinds of work with the public, and so I'm embedded. People know me, not a big deal, but people do know my face. And if you know anything about me, then you know that I'm an honest person and that I'm a people person, and I want you to know that I care and love this community that I live in. With that said, I want to tell you what happened to me. On September 9th of 2016, I was arrested by the Wenatchee Police Department. My wife had made allegations in the middle of divorce proceedings and a pending custody battle. In order for her to destroy any hope of me getting custody, she employed what is known as the silver bullet technique. If you're not familiar with that, basically it's using domestic violence laws in order to gain leverage in a custody dispute or some sort of divorce proceedings. It's very well known and pretty much denied by anybody who wants to see the current domestic violence laws to go as is, because as it is, there's a ready-made victim and a ready-made bad guy. If you're a man and you have male genitalia, then that is enough probable cause for you to be arrested for domestic violence or some sort of sexual assault accusation. They don't need any more. They don't even need evidence. You just gotta be a man. And if it's a female making the allegations, it's a slam dunk. I know that. So I was arrested by my wife's allegations of third-degree assault or third-degree rape and second-degree assault. Now, the problem with that is at the time of my arrest, those accusations were provably false. Provably false, meaning if somebody would have asked me, Mr. Strickland, where were you? Who were you with? And what were you doing? I would have been able to give them information that they would have been able to go in and check on at the time of my arrest, which would have exposed my wife's lies. But instead they did no investigation. I was arrested and taken to jail. After 5 days, I was able to bail out. In the meantime, I didn't know it, but I'd lost my house. I'd lost contact with my kids, all my possessions, anything that I had brought into the marriage or anything that we had gathered at that time is all gone. Not only that, I'm now being seen as a criminal by everybody involved, which makes it a lot easier for the family courts to divvy up who gets what. And because if we got a bad guy, he's getting screwed in every which way he can. So after bailing out, I met my public defender, Sunshine Poliquin from the Council for Defense. And from day one, her goal was for me to take a plea bargain. I gave her all the information she needed to prove my innocence, and she never submitted it. And anytime she would talk to me about it, it was like, the jury will look at it like this and blah, 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 and the best thing you can do is take a plea bargain. That was her only goal. So I fired her after 8 months, and I brought in an attorney from Yakima. His name is Tim Hall, and he has his own Hall and I can never remember the last name, but Tim Hall was the attorney. He came in, and within 3 months, the case was dismissed. Basically, he had taken all the information, put it in his neat little lawyer package, and presented it to the prosecution. That on top of me taking a lie detector test, and they dismissed the case. I want justice. I want her exposed as a liar. I want her punished. None of that is going to happen. So at the time of the dismissal, my attorney was doing an investigation into the detective who had me arrested. His name is Jeff Ward for the Wenatchee Police Department. And when the case was dismissed, the investigation ended, and we never heard or got that information from them. So I picked it up, and I started doing public records requests on Detective Ward and trying to find out a little bit about his history, which it's pretty checkered. I mean, he should be on something called a Brady list, which is a list of all departments or counties who have officers who have been known to be dishonest in the line of duty. And he was very clearly found to be dishonest in the line of duty, wherein he crashed into a citizen's vehicle, and then he ticketed that person and basically put his life in turmoil, saying that it was that person's fault and he was speeding and this and that. Problem is, there was a dash cam on his vehicle. It tells the whole truth, and he lied through it. So we were investigating into that. We wondered why he hadn't been reported to that list. Well, he had only been punished for the driving violation and not that. They're not really excited about putting their cops on this list. So I find out about that. Well, I started doing an investigation into that incident. I wanted to know information from Internal Affairs, the ticketing officer, Detective Ward, the chief of police, anybody who had an email talking about that subject. I also pulled up his what do you call it? Damn it. The evaluation report, his employee evaluation. And basically in there I found out that he doesn't trust his commanding officers, he doesn't like his job, and he planned on doing as little work as possible. Well, that attitude is what fucked my life up, because he did not do any work in my case, and they were just going to send me to prison. Okay, so upon my third and most intrusive request, I get asked to speak with the chief of police. Yeah, I'll speak to the chief of police. Would have loved to have spoken to him months ago to let him know what was going on, right? Didn't trust him or anybody else for that matter. I knew right away that I was in a bad situation. Okay, so now the tides have turned, and I'm doing an investigation into him. He comes in, or his detective. I meet him, he calls me, and I go into his meeting room or whatever, and he starts to tell me about his illustrious career. 18 years of working in the police force one way or another. He started off as a Wenatchee cop, went on to work for the parks, and now he's back as the chief of police. Talks about his first 18 months and how challenging they were, because there were some cop killings, including one that happened in Albertsons, where they shot a man who supposedly was carrying a 3-inch knife. Well, that one didn't blow over very well, so he had been dealing with that, and he had, expressed to me how that had complicated, his starting as the chief of police. And then he goes into defending his cop and telling him how he's a good cop and maybe he made some mistakes and blah, blah, blah. Well, I shut that off right now, and I let him know what evidence I had about his dishonesty, about how he lied in the police reports to solidify my wife's bullshit case. These are things they normally get away with, so he wasn't thinking it was ever going to come back on him. And so it gets a little testy after a while, and I end up just telling the chief of police, look, he's destroyed my life. I've got nothing going for me. I've got nothing better to do than investigate this cop and clear my name. And this is when it turns kind of ugly, and this is kind of the reason why I'm on your computer screen right now. He told me his story, and his story was supposed to highlight his attempts at public relations and how to make things better. He tells me of the story of a moose that got struck by a vehicle on Wenatchee Avenue. And this moose had a broken back or broken legs or whatever. It was lying in the street making all kinds of noise, and the police were asking to dispatch of the animal. And of course he said, no, we're not going to do that. Let me come down and check out the situation. He comes down and assesses the situation, says, yeah, this thing needs to be dispatched of. There's no way we're going to get it out of here without a mess, whatever. Cordon off the area, and they, for 1 block area is what he says. And then he stands up, and he reaches in a crouched position into his fake holster, and he pulls out a fake gun. And he points out over my shoulder somewhere, and he, boom, pulls the trigger. And then he tells me how, in his way of public relations and why this story was so important to him, and how he had to go around the neighborhood to the businesses and the citizens and tell them what the ruckus was all about, that they had to put a wild animal making too much noise in the street out of its misery. He had to dispatch a wild animal making too much noise in the street. That's what he said to me. It didn't dawn on me at the time, but clearly I look back now and see that as a threat. And that's part of the reason why I'm now public. I've also been out publicly protesting. Some of you might have seen me. Yes, the police approached me during that time as well, where I was carrying a sign that says, Detective Ward tried to frame me and the chief of police threatened me for it. Yeah, these are some of the signs that I put up, but I've got a lot more. I'll be out protesting. So I'm hoping that maybe I can get some people to join me in my cause and, let the chief of police and all the police officers and anybody else who wants to be part of this racket know that we're not going to sit back and let it happen. Thank God for the internet.